Hello everyone, welcome back to part 14. I made a short break, but I'm back. And I'm back because something exciting happened. Capture One just got this really big update that I wanted to show you. I'm really excited to show you this. It now allows us to edit the layered TIFF files, similar to what we can do inside of Lightroom. And this is amazing news, at least for me it is, very exciting. Because if you have been following this series or my work, you know that I have been talking about the differences in workflow between Camera Raw and Bridge, and then Lightroom, and then of course Capture One. And one thing I didn't like about Capture One, perhaps the biggest handicap, was that you couldn't edit a file inside of Capture One, export it to Photoshop, and go back and re-edit the layered TIFF inside of Capture One. Well, now you can. Because if you remember, for Lightroom users, this was a big benefit, right? You would edit your file inside of Lightroom, you would export it into Photoshop, we would use layers and all the adjustments and things that are better to do inside of Photoshop. Then we would save it, and we would have the freedom to keep the active link between Photoshop layered file and Lightroom and all of its adjustments. Very useful. And for somebody who uses this workflow, if you switch to Capture One, you might like all the different features that it offers, the sliders and everything, and the raw engine, but you kind of miss that big thing that we can do with our files inside of Lightroom. Well, no longer. Finally, the Capture One community has gotten an opportunity now to, in fact, edit layered TIFF files and maintain that link between Photoshop and Capture One. And I wanted to show you that. It is not as robust and as feature rich as the one in Lightroom. That's a bit of a disappointment for me, but still it's a great update, really welcomed. And let's get to it. I want to show you not only how does it work in Capture One, but how does the same feature work inside of Lightroom, so you can have a better comparison. Okay, so let's get started. By the way, for those of you who are new to this series and to this channel, this is part 14, and it's all about continuing the series. So each episode kind of continues on its predecessor, even though you can possibly watch them on their own. And if you haven't watched the last episode where I talk about Capture One and you're new to the program, you should watch that as well. I will link below all the episodes so you can easily find them. And by the way, my name is Krunoslav Stifter, and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, give it a like. If this is something you think it's worthy of sharing with your friends and followers, please do, because the more people see this, the more you can help me grow this channel, and the more I will be compelled to create more videos. Also, if you would like to receive updates of this kind, please subscribe to this channel. That way your updates will get to your inbox and you will be always notified. And also, this is a feature I haven't tried yet, so please leave some comments below for your own experiences, and if you're a Lightroom user, how does it compare? I'm really curious about your opinions on that. So without further ado, let's continue. So let's get started. Now, first things first, all of these images that you see here, those are the ones I worked on previously, so no big mystery. If you haven't seen those videos, please check them out. You'll learn everything that I've done. Here, just for demonstration purposes, I won't do any particularly big edits. Now, first thing I want to say is that you need to have the latest version, currently the latest version of Capture One. That will be 8.1. So you can go to Help, About, and you will see what your version is. Capture One Pro 8.1, that is the latest version, I believe. So if you don't have that, you can go to Help and check for updates, and here you can find the latest version and you can download that, or you can just go to Phase One's website and download it from there. Now, once you have that installed, then you will have this option that I wanted to talk about in these videos. So first things first, previously what we had a problem, of course, was that we would edit this file and it was just export the file from Capture One into Photoshop and continue editing. But it was like a one-night stand, it was good, bye-bye. But with Lightroom, we used to have the option to do our edits and then just click and edit in, and then we could edit the file and keep the relationship between the two programs, between Lightroom and Photoshop, active. And that was great, because it allows us so much more in terms of workflow. With Capture One, that was previously a limitation. Now they've improved. They've added an option. If I right click on an image anywhere inside my collection, inside my browser here, there's an option Edit With, but there is a catch. So let me show you. First of all, the only kind of adjustment I did here was just to increase a little bit of exposure. Maybe I can increase shadow detail, maybe here a bit. Nothing particularly important. Okay, now I'll go to my library here, and here's the problem. I'm currently viewing these images as a collection which is based on the criteria that it just collects from all the album, all the session. It collects images that have 5 stars rating, and these images have 5-star rating, and they're in this collection, right? So if I right click on an image and I choose Edit With, boom, I get this really shocking warning sign. And when I first tried this, it was really disappointing. What it says basically is editing images from this collection type is not supported. God knows why. Editing images from smart collections or trash is not supported. You may edit images from any other collection type. This is a limitation now inside of Capture One, but I'm not sure why that is. It's kind of confusing because in Lightroom it works just fine. I'll show you in a minute. So I'll click OK, and instead I'll just click on my Selects folder. Now remember, this is a test session here that I created, and in Selects folder, if I open up my bridge here so you can actually view them on my hard drive, in the Selects folder I do have those images, so they're actually here. And I guess collection can collect images from all over the different hard drives, and for whatever reason you can't edit them inside of Photoshop. But let me go back to Capture One. But if you, instead of using this collection option, you choose Select Folder, for example, and if you choose Edit With, all of a sudden you get a dialog box that you were looking for. You get the holy grail so far of editing our files. But we'll get to this in a minute, so I'll just cancel out of this to show you the contrast between this and the one in Lightroom. So if I go back to Lightroom, here I have a very similar situation, right? I have opened up my catalog, I have my 3 images here, and if I right click on any of these, I could edit them, but I'm sorry, my hard drive went to sleep for a moment because I haven't been using it for a while. So give it a second to load up. Okay, so if I right click on any of these images, right, there's an option Edit In, and I can choose any of the option, it will work. But if I click on my 5-star images, which is in a collection similar to one in Capture One, and if I click Edit In, it will still open them. I assure you, there's no limitations. So for whatever reason in Lightroom, this is not a limitation and it's very flexible. In Capture One, it's very specific. You can't do it with collection, you have to do it with, I guess, actual files on your hard drive. So that's one difference between editing in this way between Lightroom and Capture One. So Capture One can do it, but it kind of trails behind Lightroom, which gives us more flexibility. So let's get back to our Edit In option. I'll right click and I'll choose Edit With. And here we have some options. So under editing options here we have, of course, format. Now format can be JPEG or TIFF. Well, for our purposes it doesn't make a lot of sense if we are using layers, because JPEG doesn't support layers, and we don't have an option to use Photoshop files here, PSDs. We can only use TIFFs, but that's pretty okay with me, because TIFF is basically a Photoshop file. It can do anything that a Photoshop file can do. It can even do more, because it supports up to 4 GB files, and Photoshop files, I believe, up to 2 GB files. So that's not a problem. I'll choose 8-bit here. I'll choose option for compression of the TIFF. I'll choose just zip. ICC profile, here you can choose any of the profiles. I'll just use my ECI RGB. I talked about that in the previous videos. Resolution 300, that's fine. Upscale, I don't want to upscale anything, so I'll just use never upscale. So it's going to give me a full size resolution image, full pixel dimensions. And under Open With, here we have all the different applications that we have on our computer. And of course, the one we're interested in is Adobe Photoshop, in my case CC. And you can choose between different applications here. So if you have some other external editors that you want to connect with Capture One, it could probably work. I haven't tested this that much, but you can try, and please leave me some comments. Maybe if you have like Nix software or something installed, I don't know, something like that. But I like to use Photoshop here for this demonstration, so we'll just choose that, and I'll click Edit. It's going to prepare a file, and it's going to allow us to now open it inside of Photoshop. Of course, this is my dialog box asking me about well, what I want to do with color profiles, and I want to use the embedded profile, of course. And for the sake of demonstration, let's clone out or heal out some of this junk stuff on the sand here, right? So I'll just create a blank layer. I'll grab my clone stamp tool here, and I'll just kind of remove some stuff real quick. Maybe make it hardness 0. And this can be very sloppy because I just want to show you that you can in fact edit the Photoshop files. It's something that we couldn't do before inside of Capture One, and that was always my thing. You know, whenever I was working with Capture One, I would always sort of, I like what they're doing with raw software, raw updates and engine and the sliders, and how we can convert colors and manipulate certain things, and I like the tools. But I never really liked the ability that you can't re-edit a layered file. That was always a big handicap for me. So finally we can do it, and like I said, I'm really excited about it. So actually I'm just talking to buy some time before I clone this out. But you know what I mean, it's just something that was, in my opinion, big handicap compared to Lightroom. Some would disagree, but for people who use the workflow that I do, it certainly is something that was always missing. Okay, so not much done here. Just I did what I just kind of reduce some of this junk here before and after. So let's say I'm done with this, right? I'll just click close, and I click yes, and it's gonna ask me how do I want to save it, and zip is okay for layers. How do I want to layer the files? Faster saves, bigger files. Sure, why not? All the settings can remain the same. I'll just click OK. Including layers will increase the file size. Don't show again. OK. It's going to save the file. It's saving. It's almost there. But once it's saved, it should immediately reappear, just like when we do in Lightroom, inside of Capture One catalog. Now, that's something that saves a lot of time. You could technically import the exported TIFF in the past, but you would have to do it manually, and you couldn't re-edit the layers. So here's the magic now that happens. If I go to my Capture One, this is my raw file, and this is the TIFF file that we just created, right? Now, first problem that I see here, unlike with Lightroom, I guess this is a bug, because you don't see any difference between them, right? So what's going on? I thought I just cloned out a bunch of stuff here on the sand. Well, I guess it still hasn't been polished as a feature as the one in Lightroom. So what I can do here is right click and choose regenerate previews, and when I do, boom, now it's going to show me the actual file. Now that's an extra step, and it's annoying, and if you don't know what to do, you will just freak out. So that's, it works, but it could work better, right? But let's say I've done this. Now what I want to do here is I'm going to go to one of my options here, and what I'll do is I'll just crank up the clarity here. Actually, we won't be able to see that the way I want to do, so what could I do here? What could I do? I don't know, I'll just reduce the saturation here so it's easy to see the difference between the two, right? And I'll just right click on this, and I'll just, I can now click on the edit width, and here I can choose how I'm going to edit this. And if I click on that, it's going to create a file, and it's going to open it inside of Photoshop once again. But this time we don't have any layers, and we have only the version that was created inside of Capture One. Well, that's not what I wanted, right? I thought it would work just like it does inside of Lightroom, but it doesn't. So I'll just cancel out of this, and I'll go back here, And first problem that I see is that it created another file, which I didn't want. So now I have two files here, TIFF and TIFF1, which I didn't want. So that's another kind of confusing thing. There's no dialog boxes to explain this. It just kind of creates files. So what I'll do is I'll delete this one, and I'll just go back to our original raw file and TIFF. So that's another thing that they didn't polish out that I particularly don't like. But I guess if you're used to how it's working, you can get away with this. So instead, I'll click on this one, and I'll click Open With this time, not Edit With, but Open With, and I'll choose Photoshop. And it's going to open it. Ah, now we're getting what we want, right? Now we have our layer, and we have our original TIFF file with layers, with everything, without the adjustment. Well, now I'm going to make another change here, just to kind of make a point. So I'll create another layer, and I'm just going to clone out this area here. Now this is something that normally I wouldn't do, but for the sake of demonstration, I'll just kind of select his arm here, maybe like this, to kind of protect it, and like so. And I'm going to select inverse of this, so it protects it. I'm going to grab my clone step tool, and I'm going to just clone some water here real quick, like so. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to grab my eraser tool here and sort of just kind of fix this edge a little bit, like so. Like I said, nothing fancy. So just I removed this, right? And I'm just going to save it. Control or Command S. It's going to save it. And it should update inside of Capture One now, which is exactly what we want. So let it save. It's going to process it for a moment. And because we have layers and this is TIFF and we're kind of using compression, it takes a little bit of a while. If you deactivate compression for TIFF file, it's going to save faster. So I'll just go to my folder, and again, okay, so this time there's no another TIFF file. That's good. So I must be doing something right. And at the same time, again, I'm not seeing any changes. What's going on, right? Well, if I regenerate previews again, boom, there's that thing that's now gone. So what about saturation? Well, saturation is still an adjustment on top of the layer TIFF coming from Capture One. That's brilliant, right? So it does work, in fact, but it's kind of complicated. It doesn't, there's no dialog boxes explaining all of this stuff, and it sort of doesn't work at first when you try it, but then you realize that it does work, but it's just not polished feature, right? Now let's compare this to Lightroom for a moment and see how does it work inside of Lightroom. So just we can have in the same video direct comparison, okay? So same scenario, but this time in Lightroom, and I want to go through this faster because I'm not really here to show you the Lightroom thing. I showed you that in the previous videos. I'm just trying to make a comparison, that's all. So as you can see, I have my image here, right, and I can go to develop module if I wanted to and change some stuff, which I already did. Once I'm done with that, I can just click edit, right click and edit in, and all of a sudden I have various options. I have edit in Photoshop, I have edit in other application, I have list of other applications already prepared for me, and I have an option to open up as a smart object, which is not what you can do inside of Capture One as far as I can tell. So no smart option ability to open it. There's only open inside of Photoshop. So let's try to do it like we did in Capture One. Edit in Photoshop. I'll do that. It's gonna open it up. Oops, I clicked on the wrong image, but it doesn't matter. I guess it's the same principle, right? So in this image, I'll just clone out this. That will be easy for demonstration purposes. Just a quick clone out so you can see something that I've done. And we're done with this, so I'll just close it and save it. If I go to Lightroom, it does pop up here, But look at this, I don't have to regenerate previews. It did it automatically, so that's a bonus for Lightroom. And another thing, now I want to re-edit this file, right? Well, if I right click, I only have edit in, and what do I have here? Well, I have, oh, again, I guess I want to edit it inside of Photoshop. But here Lightroom is smart. It asks me, what do you want to edit? And then it gives me small explanations. They want to edit copy with Lightroom adjustments. This is what Capture One does, but there's no dialog box. Edit a copy of this or edit the original. Well, I want to edit the original. And when I do, I have my layer, I have everything I need. So I don't know, what should we do here? Let's clone out another piece of land here, just for the sake of demonstration. Something really quick, like so. And let's close this once again. Go back to Lightroom. It will immediately again update, no additional things required, right? That part is out, is gone, both here and here. And if I want to do something here, I can, just like I can inside of Capture One. So it does work as it does in Lightroom, but Lightroom does it much more polished, it's much more robust system, I think, and it gives us more options and a more intuitive way. But it is what it is. So let's go back to our file inside of Capture One, and let's see another problem that we might face, and that is what happens when we need to edit multiple files, or if we need multiple raw conversions. How does Lightroom handle this versus how does Capture One handle this? So I'll take this image, which I guess what I wanted to do is have multiple raw conversions of the file and then mask them out, just like I did before in the previous videos. Now before, whether I was using Camera Raw or I was using Lightroom, I had the option to use the Smart Object, and that was great because it allowed me so much flexibility. Unfortunately, Capture One does not allow us this. We cannot use smart objects, which is another kind of minus, but okay. Let's see what else we can do. Well, first thing I guess I would have to do is create another variant of this, right? So I'm gonna right click, and there's an option here, maybe you don't see it, it says new variant. So I get a new version of the same raw file, and I'll just increase the exposure a little bit so we have two versions of the same file. I'll select both of them, and I'll right click on them and choose edit with. And this time it's going to give me another dialog box. It says basically that I can either edit, a primary variant or all selected variants, or maybe I can choose not show this again. I'll choose all selected variants, and it's going to prepare the files. Now we haven't talked about this adjustment tab here, but basically it's just disable sharpening and ignore crop. So what I'll do is I'll choose like I did before, and I'll click edit. It's going to prepare the files, and it should open them inside of Photoshop. So it opened up one, it opened up another, but it's less than ideal situation. It didn't open them as I would like to, at least in one document as two layers. In fact, it opened them as two documents. So now I have to manually drag one file over the other to get two layers to start masking, which is a lot of work. It would be much easier if it was one layer on top of the other, or some option to allow me this. But I can't do this, so I'll just close these files. And if I go to Capture One, what I see is another really not very intuitive thing. Apparently it has created TIFF files of both of them. So now it just kind of keeps on creating a bunch of files, right? And this is kind of annoying because I don't want all these files on my hard drive. It's just way too many versions of the same thing. It's not as intuitive as it does in Lightroom. So I'll just select both of these, and I'll delete both of these. And I guess you can do it by opening up one by one as two documents and then drag them one across the other. But it's so much harder than do it with Smart Objects, and it doesn't allow you to open them as two layers, which is another kind of strange thing. Why wouldn't they do that? But let's see how that works in Lightroom, okay, as a contrast. So in Lightroom, I'll use the same, thing, right? I'll have one version, and then I'll right click on this file and I'll choose create virtual copy, which is like a variant. And in this version I'll reduce the exposure a bit. I'll select both of these files. I'll select edit inside of Photoshop, and if I do that, it's going to open it up just like it did inside of the Capture One as two different documents, right? But I don't want that, so I'll close them, but I won't save them. And first thing that's great is that even though I didn't save them, it only temporarily opened them inside of Photoshop. It didn't automatically copy them as two TIFFs, two big TIFFs here, right? Until I save them, until I commit to a change, they're not on my hard drive, they're just in some memory. But with Capture One, they just keep creating a bunch of files, and it's really annoying. So that's another benefit to Lightroom. But here's another thing that you can do in Lightroom. You can select both of them, go to Edit In, and choose Open as Layers in Photoshop. Yay! So I'll just click on that, and it's going to open them up inside of Photoshop. But this time has two layers, right? How cool is that? Why don't we have something like that inside of Capture One? But here it is. Really? We got two files as layers. Brilliant. And if I don't like this, I'll just close it. And again, because I didn't save it, it didn't show up here. So as long as I don't commit to saving, it works. Brilliant. But Capture One does not allow that. It just kind of keeps creating files, no dialog boxes, no generated previews. So it definitely, yes, it can work like Lightroom, or at least to a degree, but it lacks flexibility, it lacks polishing of the feature, it lacks a lot of things. But it is still a step in a good direction. So, it is what it is. We're getting a great update, but it still needs some work. So let's conclude. What have we got now? We have now a Capture One that is moving in the right direction. I have always missed this feature, and it certainly works. It's not as good as I hoped. It is a disappointment in some areas, but it is a very positive thing. We're moving in the right direction, I think. And I like a lot of the features that Capture One offers in terms of flexibility with the tools and color adjustments and all that. But that thing for my workflow, the inability to edit layered TIFF files, was always a big handicap. And here, finally, we have that option. It's not as good as we would like, perhaps. If you're coming from Lightroom, might feel like a limitation in some ways, but it still is something that's much welcomed inside of Capture One, and I'm sure many would rejoice by using this feature. It can't open as smart objects, it can't open as multiple layers, multiple conversions. It keeps on creating a bunch of files that I don't want. It doesn't render previews automatically, I have to do it manually, so there's still a lot of room to improve. But it is still possible to edit layered TIFFs. Now, why would somebody even want to do this? Well, beyond what I showed you in the previous videos as the way I would like to work, it does allow you one thing that really I like, because you start in this raw converter such as Lightroom or Capture One. You go to Photoshop to do your thing, you come back, it's all done automatically, right? And then you can use this much better program such as this one or Lightroom to export multiple files for different purposes, for print, for web, for anything you want. Apply sharpening, different variants, different virtual copies. So it is much better than simply going one way, especially for someone who is used to that kind of workflow. Now, if you're the kind of user that never used Capture One or Lightroom in this way, where you go back and forth, then by all means, continue doing what you're doing. It doesn't really matter what this feature allows or doesn't allow. But for people who are used to using Lightroom the way I do and the way I explained in the previous videos, you can certainly see how something like that is missing inside of Capture One, and finally we're getting a step in the right direction. Still some polishing needed to do, but it's not a bad first step. So I have my fingers crossed to be improved even further in future updates. So well, that's my take on this new feature, and it's kind of exciting that they've implemented this. And I would like to hear your sort of workflow ideas, and does this matter to you or doesn't? What do you use? Leave me some comments or start a conversation. Also, if you are a user of this feature or you just trying it right now because it's relatively new with this update, have you tried it with other programs outside of Photoshop, and are there more limitations, or does it work better or the same? Those are the things I haven't been able to test yet. This is fairly new to me. I just heard about this update, so I just wanted to create a quick video on it. Yeah, quick, right? So anyway, give me some feedback and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Thank you for watching, and if you see any videos that you like on my channel, please give me a thumbs up, click the like button, share it if you like with your friends, spread the word, leave a comment, give me some feedback so I can make better videos. And if you like to receive more videos that I upload and get a up-to-date state on my channel and the tutorials I make, please click on the subscribe button. And here's a really interesting thing I would also recommend. You see this little icon here, this little wheel? If you click on it, there's an option called Send Me Updates, and you click just Save. That way you will get updates to your directly to your inbox in your email, not just on the channel update, and you will never miss a video. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.